In Civil 3D, we start with a brand new drawing, which I've already set up to the coordinate system that I work in most of the time. I'm going to be bringing in my InfraWorks model by selecting the local cache file. I don't need to worry about the coordinate system because it's already set up in my template. I can designate the area of interest that I want to bring in. I do not want to bring in my planning roads, nor the existing transportation surface. And as I open the model, it takes a little bit to come in. I want to turn off my Bing maps so I can see the model a little bit easier. And I'm going to save this in my Civil 3D surface folder as IWX surfaces. In the IWX surface drawing, I'm going to create my data shortcuts for the two surfaces that came in from InfraWorks. And now I'll save this as a working folder as Concept A. Now this may not make much sense right now, but bear with me, because I'm going to rename my surfaces now to EG and FG in my working folder. And now I need to change my data shortcuts. So for my EG, I'm going to map that to the InfraWorks existing ground, as well as my FG to my InfraWorks proposed ground. The reason I'm doing this is as my design develops, I can then swap out the surfaces to more developed surfaces. I'll do a slope analysis with the same colors and ranges that I had in InfraWorks. Change my style to my slope analysis style. And very similarly, I can do a directions analysis like I did in InfraWorks. For my cut fill calculations, I go to my volume dashboard and I need to generate a new volume surface. I'll call that site volumes. And I'm going to compare my existing ground to my finished ground. And it calculates it immediately, shows me a nice little bar graph. I can change my surface style of my site volumes to cut and fill. So I can see the green and the reds, which designate my cuts and my fills. Now, unlike InfraWorks, I can generate a table both for my slopes and my volumes, and this is a dynamic table which will continuously update as my surfaces change. We're jumping ahead a little bit now, and I'm going to zoom into my area. In InfraWorks, I generated bookmarks. In Civil 3D, I can generate views, so I can use these views to manipulate around the model quite quickly. I'm going to bring in, just like I did with InfraWorks, that 2D CAD drawing, and I'm going to position it. For the sketchbook sketch, I'm using raster design. I pick the sketchbook sketch from my BIM 360 folder, like I did in InfraWorks, and I can place it either through the rubber sheeting, where I can have multiple points, or through the match command that allows me 2 different points. So again, I use the match command, select the point on the image and where it belongs in the drawing. And I can do this up to 2 points. If I require it, I can use the rubber banding, rubber sheeting for multiple points. Now I'll bring in the building footprints from Revit, Hotel 2D. I need to manually place that because it's not geo-referenced yet. I position it as well as I can, and then I rotate it into place. Repeat the same for my school. You notice that the school base unit is set to feet. It's actually in inches. There was an error when processing that file. So I tell my scale is 1 to 12, and again I select it as best as I can. I'll be using the match command later, the align command, to match it up properly. My image is a little bit strong. I'm using the histogram command within raster design, and the preview will show me what the image is going to be look like. Now the image is still a little overbearing, so what I like about raster design, I can have multiple images. I can select which image I want and simply load it or unload it. Use the AutoCAD align command to position this XREF a little bit better. I select the point on the XREF and where it needs to belong in the drawing. I do this with 2 points, and I do not want to scale the object. I want to turn off these contours, so I'm going to turn my surface style off, similar like I did in InfraWorks. Now it's time to generate my shared reference point so that these coordinates can be shared within Revit. I go to my tool space to invoke the command. I pick my project base point and my quasi-north point, and I use the .xy filter so it reads the same elevation from my project point to my quasi-north point. Tell it that this is in feet, and I save it up into BIM 360 as School A, because I might have different options. For my hotel, I have different options, and these different options are shown on different layers. So I simply freeze and thaw a layer and invoke my shared reference point by picking the base point and the quasi-north point. And again, I use a .xy filter, tell it that it is in feet. Oops, my coordinates are off, my elevations were off a little bit. And save this as Hotel B. You notice Hotel A is already up there. I'm going to start my grading by generating a feature line that's on my XREF. So I select that feature line as an XREF, and I give it a site for option A, so later on I can designate different sites to look at different options. My feature line is going to be relative to my finish ground, raised 1 foot up, so that as my finish ground moves, my feature line moves. We fast forward a little bit here so we can see the grading around my building footprint, and this is the grading around the school, and this is the entire plan view. Now we do have some more surfaces here that we can swap in and out, so I'm going to change my surface, my data shortcut project, and link up my existing ground, my EG, to my updated existing ground, and my FG to my updated finish ground. We have a survey that we generated as well, so I can simply double click on that survey and right click to bring it into my drawing. You see that all the survey points come in along with the proper symbols, properly scaled, and the proper labeling. I also have a survey generated with a field book, and that comes in for my road up above with the different feature lines. I'm going to publish my surfaces now for Revit to be shared with, and I give that proper names because I have different options. I need to save this up into BIM 360, so I require BIM 360 for sharing my surfaces. And I'm going to share my finish ground as well, load it up into BIM 360. It asks me if I want to swap out a style that is better suited for Revit. I say yes. If I'm quick enough, I can go to my desktop connector to see what my pending options are.